It's a big pleasure being here in Holland. It always gives a very nice feeling coming here and connecting also to the previous experiences, because every time I was here it was something very pleasurable and also meaningful. So in the same way, coming back always gives a good feeling. So especially also connected to the fact that we want to taco. If you move the head of the thing like this, suck 90 degrees, then you can hold.
Yeah.
So, especially also because for many of us, most of us, we are spending a lot of our time in our daily life busy with so many things. We are busy with things regarding our work. We are busy solving our little difficulties of our daily life, little, small, medium, big difficulties of our daily life. We are busy enjoying our small, medium, great pleasures. We are busy in many different ways. And as the great master teacher from the 11th century had said, during the day we are distracted, during the night we fall asleep. And like this our life passed by. And we are distracted means we are distracted from something. And mostly our attention is being taken by the past and by the future. If we look how much time in our life we consume with the past, what have happened, where we went, what we see, things that didn't go in the way how we thought it should have gone, things that went the right way, but I wish they would repeat, but they are not there anymore. How much time do we consume staying in the past? This is one issue. And the other issue connected also is how much time, how much space of our life it is consumed with our projections of the future. Basically, we are here now, and then we are, okay, what is going to happen tomorrow and then next week, because I need to do this, and now it's Christmas time, and I need to get the presents, and because of this and that, and then after that is coming who knows what, and then we are already projected there, and then there is worries and fears and many things like that. And there is one point which is important, is that the more we have actually this level of uncertainty regarding what may happen in the future, the more it generates tension and anxiety also in the present moment, because we spend a lot of our time in the past and in the future, but truly we live in the present. And this expending our time looking through the past and projecting ourselves in the future with worries and so on, what does it generate in the present? What does it generate in our actual experience? And one of the things that it generates is anxiety. There is fear. This manifests in our physical problems that we have also. And then this brings also to our inability to experience well the present, to enjoy the present moment, and to live life in a more meaningful way, because we are busy with so much worries and so on. Then there is another reaction, which we have sometimes also, which is the reactions of looking at all the problems that are there, and then they may be so overwhelming, some things are so much bigger than us, that we simply some sort of how disconnect from it. And say, what's the point worrying about and thinking about the bigger problems, the bigger picture, when I cannot make really any much difference about it? So I just prefer to enjoy my life wherever way I can. And I don't connect myself to whatever conflict or difficulties or the bigger picture there may be. And if we look, we do live in a moment which is particular. Also the title which was chosen for today, which is how to live in a time of climate change and war. And the answer is I don't know. To say like, I don't have a real, how to say, easy solution. But I think there are different reflections that can be of benefit for all of us that I like to go through together. Okay? But I'm also happy because it is to take some time to reflect upon things in a more meaningful way. It's something that I think is very important for all of us. So we do this together. Okay? As I said before, we pass a great part of our life being distracted with many things. And when Atisha in the 11th century in Tibet said that there was a lot of distractions, I was thinking, oh, ho, ho, ho. You know, he had no idea what we go out through today. If Atisha would come nowadays, he would get completely shocked, I think. Because Atisha was saying, you have, during the day you are distracted, during the night you fall asleep, you have so many objects of knowledge that finally you cannot just know everything and put your energy into everything. And I was like, no, this was Tibet, 11th century Tibet, you know.
No Wi-Fi.
We live in a world nowadays in which we are constantly connected to something external. So we don't have enough space and we don't have enough, how do you say, habit also, to connect to what is inside very often. Because we are always looking, listening, touching, tasting, you know? Always connected to so many outer, how do you say, sensory stimulation, all the time. And I had this experience that our senses, they are very interesting because it is like when we go to a dark place, initially we don't see. Then if we stay for a longer period in this darker place, slowly, we start seeing. You know? Like not long ago I had the experience of walking in the dark, in the night, in the forest near my place where I live in Albagnano. And I had a torch, then I turned off the torch. And then one moment I saw that the eyes slowly got more used. And then I said, oh, the darkness is not so dark, actually. Mm-hmm. There is a lot to be seen in the night even, you know, when our eyes get more used to it. Mm-hmm. On the other way around, if we go from a darker place to a place with a lot of light, the eyes take some time, but they adapt. The same thing is with our hearing. When we go to a place that is very loud, we have the tendency to be able to adapt to the loudness. If we go to a place there is no any noise, somehow we become very much more sensitive to the different sounds. So our senses, the more subtle is the object of the sense, the more sensitive becomes our sense power. The same thing is with touch, with smell, with taste, and so on. You know? And the same thing happens also with our own mind. The more we have gross objects of perception, which is like projections, worries, the more we are connected to our external senses and so on, the less subtle our mind becomes. The less we are able to perceive the more subtle aspects of things within our own mind. The more we are able to have less thoughts, less conceptual dialogue, less inner dialogue, and all of that, then from that silence, slowly we will have a more subtle perception. And then we can see and perceive things better also. So, for me, sometimes to stop and just, give some time to reflect upon what am I doing, where am I going, I think is something that is important for all of us. So my thought of today was to do this together. Okay? To look and to say, where are we in this world that we are living? Because I look at the news, I think most of you do. I don't know how often and so on. But we know what things that are happening around us are not very comforting. And there are different things which generates anxiety, which we can have anxiety, we can have fear, there are different things which are happening. And then there are another aspects also, which is that we live in a society which is made of individuals. And the choices that we make have an impact on each other and an impact in the whole. So I think it is also very important for us to be aware of this interdependence in which we live, to be aware of our choices, what impact they may have, and so on and so on. Okay? So, one of the particular characteristics of these times in which we live, which is not only to do with climate change, has not only to do with war, but also has to do with other changes in society. On, for example, the job market, ways of communication. There are many things which are changing quite rapidly. So when there is a lot of changes going on and a lot of some sort of uncertainties, what do? We stick to what is safe. And the most important of that is we need to develop flexibility. Because when we want to be in a safe place, when we want to feel safe, often we try to make sure that things happen around us in the way how we expect them to happen. That's something that is strongly connected to our feeling of feeling safe. But when we look around and we say, okay, like I remember 2014, when there was the invasion of Crimea. There was no any formal war, but one country annexed an area of another country to itself. No? At that time I had the feeling like, okay, something that I thought would not happen, happened. I said, okay, in my own worldview, the way how I grew up, I thought one country cannot take an area of another country. Then suddenly, boom, it happens. Then we get the war in Ukraine. So what is happening is that one country is invading another country without entering into all the details of the war and so on. But technically we have a military conflict over space, a land space which until very recently was very clear from who it belonged. Okay? And this takes away one certainty. It is possible to have a war here, very near to us it's happening, and it's possible to have it here again. Then we have another conflict not far away happening in Israel. You know, and all these things, they bring us into this feeling of, oh, something is uncertain. Something that I was there where I felt that there was some certainties that suddenly are not there anymore. So when we look and we say, okay, I'm not sure that this or that cannot happen because look what have just happened. So we lose some certainty of how things can go. Then depending on our age, we look at the job market and we see these crazy changes that are happening in our society on so many levels with artificial intelligence or who knows what. And then we see that there are many places which we thought were safe from the job perspective and so on, and suddenly they are not. And then, you know, we see it's summer and it's cold, it's winter and it's hot, and we see so many issues regarding the environment. And when we look to it and we see the perspective that is given to us from scientific basis research and so on the direction that we are going, what all of this brings us to? Certainty or uncertainty? Quite strong uncertainty. And actually, if we really go into details on what is happening to the environment, wars are something quite small compared. Like the level in which we are being able as humanity to destroy biodiversity is shocking. The amount of forest that we destroyed is shocking. And the danger of destroying biodiversity It is something that it's deeply connected to our own ability of survival. We don't see a lot of that. And if we start looking to it, we see, okay, we don't know really what will happen in the next years. And then we have the climate change with the effect of, okay, raising sea levels. Okay, we are in Holland. I don't know where each one of you live, but I know that I was told that in Holland, first you learn to swim, then to walk. So there is a reason for that. No? But jokes apart, what happens is that there are uncertainties. Then we just went through a pandemic in which things that we thought would never happen, suddenly we see happening. Like, I never thought that suddenly the borders between European countries would close. I said, no, come on, that's not happening in this way. And then suddenly, one country closed, and from one day to another, everyone closing. No. And many things that we saw. Okay. So, we live in times where there is uncertainty. And sometimes, somehow, we often try to look for our own stability, our own certainty into external certainty. But this is something that it's not so stable. And this can bring a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety, and so on. So one example, one analogy, which I find quite nice actually, is of one girl in Australia. When she was quite young, I think she was 9 or 6, something like that, she decided that she wanted to go around the world sailing. She made this strong commitment. There is a movie, documentary about her. And she made this strong commitment. Her parents in the beginning thought, oh, it's so nice that she has a dream. Let's give her support. She will never make it, but let her believe in it. But she put so much energy into it. She met a sailing master and went to have classes with him and do all the things. So making a long story short, when she was 16 years old, she was ready to go around the world alone on a sailing boat. Okay? And what was touching for me is that the day she left for this trip, which took her 210 days alone in the sea, without ever stopping the boat anywhere and without meeting anyone, was she sure and certain that there would be no difficulties on her trip? No. Was she certain that there would be no storms or any other big problems? No. And actually there were, like two very big storms that she went through. The last one was really terrible. But what gave her this certainty to live and to go through it? The trust in herself. The trust in her own abilities to deal with whatever would come. So she said, okay, I know how to sail well. I know how to be alone. I am ready to do this. If there is a storm, I know what to do in a storm. Whatever is coming, I can deal with it. So this strong self-esteem, this is strong trust in one's own abilities to deal with whatever may come, is what gives this certainty to say, okay, even though I cannot control what happens outside, I'm still stable, because I know that whatever comes, I am ready to it. So, it's similar, another example, one time a friend of ours from the Sangha came to me with the diagnosis that had the possible diagnosis of a cancer. And there was a lot of fear involved. Because if you go to the doctor and the doctor said, look, there is a high probability that you have a cancer, and if it is true, it's quite a bad one, but we are not really sure that it is. Until you don't get the final answer, what remains in your mind? Fear. And then, and after the doctor said this, he said, no, but you don't worry, it may be nothing, most probably it's nothing. Then I was talking to this friend, And I was telling to her, look, if I tell you, don't worry, nothing will happen, it doesn't matter how much you try to believe. This 0.01% of possibility that it will happen, it overwhelms your mind. Or not? We can give 1,000 reasons why I don't have a cancer. But if there is a 0.1% possibility, 1 in 1,000 reasons to say, yes, I can have a cancer, will that overwhelm us? Yes. So my attitude for myself, which I tried to share with her, which for her work, was saying, don't need to say to you that it won't happen. But make clear to yourself that whatever happens, you have the tools to deal with it. It doesn't matter what happens, you have financially, physically, medically, spiritually, you do have the tools to deal with it. So you need to generate a sort of self-esteem, sort of pride to say, okay, come on, whatever comes, I'm ready to deal with it. And this comes down the mind. Okay. So, in times of uncertainty, we need to focus our energy on one side into our own resources, into our own qualities, into recognizing our resources and making clear to ourselves that whatever comes, I am ready to deal with it. I'm not sure what will come. I'm not sure how things will be. But the more I am flexible, the more I'm able to adapt to different situations, and the more at the same time I am actually, the more I have trust in my own ability. Okay, I don't worry before, and when things comes, I adapt to them and I find solutions as I go along the way. And one other thing which Rinpoche sometimes he talked to me about this, and in different traditions, I was reading some Greek text some days ago, it was also talking about this, is expect the worst, so that the worst is not so bad actually when it comes. So like, don't say, because the more we say to ourselves, nothing will happen, everything is fine, it is not going to happen, then if something small happens, it looks big. When you say, okay, yeah, this can happen, and you look at it and you say, okay, I'm ready, it could go quite bad. If it goes that bad, I will deal with it. Then it doesn't go that bad, and then it's okay, oh look, it was quite good. Because it has very much to do with our own projection, which means, quantity, if it's a lot or if it's little, it depends on the value that we attribute based on a comparison. It's not something that is there by its own. Okay. So, there is one part in which we prepare ourselves for the worst without living in paranoia, because we say, I have the tools to deal with it. And we focus ourselves in our own resources and in developing these resources. This is very important. Because when we look to our climate situation, if I really go into details and I start looking at it, personally it worries me. It worries me from the point of view of my own direct experience in this lifetime. It worries me when I look at the mental health on a general basis, because the body is connected to the mind, they are one actually. The environment is connected to both. And there are many aspects which are really not okay. Because also what is happening, just to make one example. Because of climate change, a lot of energy is being put into creating of genetically modified seeds. And all of these things, and new chemical products and other things which can deal with different temperatures and all this sort of things. So when we go to look through that, and we see what we already eat and how we live in so many levels, we already see there are many things that are not really healthy. And we live in a very, fortunate part of the planet. We have a lot of advantage on many levels. But still, we can see there is the level of concentration is not getting better, the level of awareness is not getting better, and so on and so on. So, together with that, it is important for us to look and say, okay, what can I do? What is on my part? Because it's not because everyone is eating poison that I need to eat poison. It's not because everyone is becoming addicted to the cell phone that I need to do the same. It's not because everyone is going majorly in one direction that necessarily I need to go into that same direction. So in these times, one of the things which I think is very important is for us really to train into having a good discernment. And to train to have a good discernment of what we do, how we act, one of the things that we need to do is to be open to information, to listen from different sides, to understand things a little bit deeply. Don't remain into things into a very superficial level. Because there are many things that are connected to our own lives, but we don't really go much deep into it. And how can I make a choice without being simply influenced by the first information that I receive, without going deeper and trying to understand and listening from different sides what is being said and so on. So this is one thing which is important. And then once we have our own position into things, then remembering that the truth normally lies between the truths, not on one side or at the other, then we can look to ourselves and say, okay, how can I myself be part of the solution and not part of the problem? And here, there are two aspects connected to it. So, one part is, as we have just said before, in order for us not to enter into this state of uncertainty in times of uncertainty, we need to connect ourselves to our resources and focus our energy in our ability to deal with whatever may come. And for that we need to develop good flexibility. We need to be less attached to the idea that things will be in the way how they have always been. This doesn't mean much. Oh, but it has always been like that. And so what? It's always changing. So in a way, the less we are fixed of how things should be, and the more we are able to adapt to what is coming and how things are happening and so on, this is something that will help us a lot in this moment. So many levels. It's like we can see with the pandemic, at one moment we were traveling a lot, suddenly we could not travel much anymore, and then things are happening. If we are able to adapt well, we'll say, okay, I have opportunity to make a sort of retreat, and I can stay more time by myself. I can read books that normally I was not reading. I can do other things. Okay, I adapt to what is happening. I find my way out. If I cannot get out of the home and meet other people, and I am every day complaining to myself that this cannot be like this, I cannot stay like this for very long, I need to meet other people, I cannot live like this forever, and then we stay worried and so on, the more I go on that way, the more difficult it becomes. So our ability of adaptation is one of the most powerful things that we can have, actually. It is one also, our ability of adaptation is one of the descriptions of intelligence also. In biology, one of the ways of describing intelligence is the ability of adaptation. So, one of the things that blocks our adaptation is when we hold so strongly on our own idea of how things should be. And when things are not in the way we thought they should be, then we get into conflict, into tension. So if we're not so much attached to that, and we're able to adapt to the way how things go, then I think this is of great benefit for all of us. So this is one point. The other point for me, which we wanted to go a little bit through together, is understanding how can I act, what can I learn, how can I act from what happens around me, of which in a way or another I am part of. So the first thing, which is strongly part of what we are experiencing, are the environmental issues. Okay. So sure, it's good to consume less plastic, to have a way of consumption that is aware, to use less industrialized products, and so on. There are many things that we can do. But when we look at our environmental crisis, where does it start? Where does it begin? What is at the root of it? What is actually creating it? It's something material, objective, or is a mentality and worldview, our own paradigm that is actually making us to make choices that are harmful to the environment? It's a thought of mind. It's an effect of mind. So I like to go a little bit to the history of this. Because for me personally, when I go backwards to the history of how come I am at this position right now, this makes a big change. Because, for example, right now we are just at the conclusion of this COP28, with all the different countries discussing how to deal with the environmental crisis and so on. And one of the main issues, is that no one wants to give up anything for one's own benefit. Huh? And the other main issue is the way how we relate ourselves to the environment itself. So when did this all start? Around 12,000 years ago. Because it is said that before that time, we as humans, we lived mainly as nomads and pickers. So basically we'll pick fruits and nuts, whatever, and we will hunt as being nomads, okay? Then around 10,000, 12,000, whatever years ago, we started to become agriculturists. So we settle at one place, we start to cultivate the land, we start to cultivate animals, to take care of them, in order to raise animals, in order to eat them, and so on. In this whole process that happened, there was one fundamental change that happened in our paradigm. And this is something that it's studied in the societies where this change happened in the same way and not. This paradigm is very clearly different, which is the difference from having an humanistic view or an animistic view. The animistic view, which was the common view before agriculture, is the view in which we are one part of nature. Me as a human, I'm the same level in nature as the dog, as the cow, as the pig, as the tree. We are all part of nature in the same way. There is no one being superior than the other. We are all here living together into this. Okay? And there are still some cultures that have this view. When together with the development of agriculture came the development also of monotheistic religions. Started during also at the same time, but that's another subject that goes together. But independently of the religion itself, that's where we started to develop the so-called humanistic view, in which the human being is in the center of the universe, above others, where the human being is not anymore part of nature, but the humans owns natures. That's when we start calling nature resources. They are resources that are there for us to use and consume in accordance to our needs. And according to the humanistic view, anything becomes meaningful when it exists in function of the needs of humans. If something doesn't exist in relation to the needs of a human, there is no purpose in it, there is no meaning in it. Okay? And this comes together with a very interesting thing. So, One side, we see nature as something that we can use, we can possess. It is there for our own needs. And we put inside this category animals also. Okay? Together with that, how do we treat nature? Including plants, forests, animals, okay, non-human beings. We are part of nature also, but how do we treat? In a respectful, gentle, loving, kind way, or we treat often in an aggressive, violent way? I believe we treat very often, okay, put aside your dog that you have at home, your cat that you have, okay? Or your the little flowers that you have at home. We as humans, how do we treat nature in general? For example, look, a field. When we go around and we see the field of plantation. It can be corn, or it can be tulips, it can be whatever. Okay? We see a tulip field and we say, how beautiful. We look at the plantation of corn and we say, how beautiful. But what is the natural thing in nature? Monoculture? Or there is a complex relation between all the plants that they interact and support each other? How is a forest? When you think about a forest is one type of tree, or is a mixture of so much life together, mixing together in so many levels. That's what nature is. Monoculture is actually quite violent. And it only works for our own needs and purpose, because for the well-being of nature, it doesn't really work on that way. Okay? So, the way of behaving towards nature in a violent way, how can we justify it inside ourselves? By being superior. It's a very interesting dynamic. Whenever we feel superior to someone, this justifies the fact of acting with violence towards them. We have a lot of difficulty being violent towards someone that is equal to us, where we see ourselves. If I see myself in you, I have a lot of difficulty being violent towards you. But if I see myself different from you and better than you, then it's less difficult to be violent towards you. And the more I see you different, the more I see you far, and the more I see myself as superior, the more easily I will act with violence towards you. So with animals, what do we did? We create so much distance between us and the animals. We are completely superior to them. And so we don't even think much about all the violence that is involved, the meat industry, for example, and the way how we treat all the animals. And whenever someone comes to me talking about eating meat, for me, the real problem has nothing to do with the killing. That's the last problem. The real problem is all the violence involved in the process of raising these animals and everything that comes with it. The problem of monoculture and all of that, it's not only the problem of the fact that we need more and more chemicals because there are more disease that comes with monoculture, and how the quality of the food that we eat that goes down, because the quality of the soil decays and everything else, is everything that is being lost in between, all the violence that is in between, everything that is being lost in between. So, when I look at all of this, where is this coming from? And the same thing when we enter into the wars and conflicts. What justifies certain types of violence into one's own mind? Being superior. Okay? And this is, we can see this with the process with migrants, we can see this in the wars, we can see this in so many levels, even in society. I am richer, he's poor. If I see someone that is from my same social level going through that situation, I would not let him there in that same way. Because I see myself in him. So, with nature itself, this process that we developed in all this time of making distance between us and nature and seeing nature as something that we can possess, as a resource for us to use. This naturally generates this way of consuming for our own use. What's the nature of our desire? It's insatisfaction. The more I have, the more I want. And we live in this world with this strange idea, which is so strong for all of us, that the more comfort we have and the less effort we put, the happier we are. And truly it doesn't work. Look at our generations now. The level of comfort that we have nowadays, it's much, 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 much higher than the kings of not long ago. So we need to put very little effort nowadays, physical effort. Things come easy. Now, for example, with artificial intelligence, even less effort we need to do for mental things even. But it's quite strong, the level of, I'll say, less effort we need to do for things. And I don't know if you recognize in yourself, but I see in myself that there is this idea that if I need to do something, the less effort I need to do to get the same result, the better for me. If I can choose two different ways to do the same thing. One way, I will need to dedicate 2-3 hours and I need to think a lot and I need to reflect and I need to go up and down. I need to put effort in my mind. And the other one, I get it easily. Which one I choose? The easy one. If I can do something and be in a situation with more comfort and less comfort, which one I choose? More comfort. So, what is the problem of these two things? Okay, what is the main problem of traveling in business class? It's a serious problem, but what's the main problem of traveling in business class? Economy class becomes horrible. It's true, huh? It's a very interesting experience. If you travel once, before it was quite nice, then suddenly it becomes terrible. The point here is that we get used to comfort. And the more we reach a certain level of comfort, the more that becomes our sort of standard. And when we don't have it, we miss it, we suffer. Okay? And we can get used to comfort so fast. So there is no such thing as, oh, get this comfort. Look, you cannot have every day, but once in a while. It's better not to have it at all than have it once in a while. Because what happens is that once you have once in a while, let's say there is a food that your daily food, you really don't like it so much, but once a week you can have really tasty food that you like. You know, when you didn't have the perspective that you could have tasty food, you were okay with the food you were eating. But in the day that you have once a week that very tasty food, and then another 5-6 days you are wondering, oh, when is coming that day? Oh, where can I have it? Oh, how nice it was. And then the one that you are eating looks terrible. So there is this aspect that, in a way, and then what we do, we put a lot of effort to be able to eat in that way also again. I don't know here in Holland, but I see in Italy, where people are much more fixed with the idea of food than in Holland. But there is, for example, this culture that Christmas time, there is a special food at Christmas. I don't know, here also? But is it still like that, or you are used to eat almost every day like Christmas, and when comes Christmas you say, oh, too much food? There is no more that thing, waiting Christmas to have that wonderful dinner. Oh, today we really put wonderful food on table, because normally it's not like that. No? Tibetan says, If every day is losar, losar loses strength. When you eat every day, momo doesn't have any more taste. When you eat every day the same thing, suddenly it doesn't give more. But what I want to say is that when we get used to comfort, pleasure and comfort, the more I have, the more I need. And I'm getting, and I don't want to get lower. Okay? So, and the other point is, the less effort I need to do to get something, the less I am used to do effort. It's not like I do less effort so I can put some energy aside for something else. The less you do, the less you are able to do. The less you do, more things become difficult to do. And there is even a very interesting thing, which in a sort of mathematics, it would not work somehow. If we can represent it in a mathematical way, but on a basic mathematical understanding, it doesn't work, which is the idea that the more I do, the more time I have to do things. The less I do, less time I have to do things. I don't know if you ever experienced that. When you are active and you do a lot and you need to put effort for things, you're able to do a lot. When there is a moment where we don't do much and we are just there without doing anything and we get used to that way of not doing much, then when we want to do something, there is never enough time, we're not really able to do it. Okay. So, the point is that the problem is not needing to put effort for things. That's not the point that we need to have difficulties. But the more I try to build up my life with more comfort and less effort, the more I will be vulnerable. Because in the moment that that level of comfort is not there, then I will be in a difficult position myself. And I would not really be able to put so much energy to do things, because I'm not used to do it anymore. So, what has all of this to do with the environment? A lot of the things that we buy, of the things connected to our lifestyle, is because we try to sustain this illusion that the more comfort and the less effort, the more happier. And we do it as a society. And we think for our own selves, okay, but if I consume this amount, what matters? But when we put all of us together, it's quite a big thing. So, when I look upon the environment, I see that on one level, one of the issues connected to it, it's my own attitude of seeing myself as not part of nature, as being able to own nature and not part of nature. I remember Lama Michel Rinpoche saying very clearly, if the environment is unhealthy, you have no way to be healthy. You can do everything to live a healthy life. But if the environment is unhealthy, you will not be healthy. Forget about it. We live in this environment. Like the environment is where we are. If the environment is sick, we will get sick. It's almost impossible, and you need so much effort to be able to keep a state of health inside an unhealthy environment. It's like, even from a psychological point of view, being in a very unhealthy context makes you unhealthy at a certain point mentally. It's possible to keep up, but it takes an immense amount of energy. So, in the environment in which we are, how can we do our part? Because there is a moment here when we start looking around and we say, oh, but what I do makes really no much difference, and then we look at the big companies or this and that here and there. I just went to the United States recently. I was shocked to see so many things that here in Europe for us are somehow taken for granted regarding the environment. Then you go there and you see people doing things. And I was saying, okay, this is so old-fashioned. I was personally shocked, but that's another thing. But my point is, I need to take care of what depends on me. How is my lifestyle? How am I doing? How much am I acting with awareness and how much I am acting just being driven by the things that are so-called normal? So it's normal to buy so much, so I can buy also myself. You know? But we need somehow to reflect upon when we buy something. It's not just a matter of how much it costs financially for us. It's a matter of the resources of nature that are being used for that and how much, what is the impact that all of that will have around us. And then it's another thing. Also, how much I am more and more entering myself into this dynamic of insatisfaction and always needing more. And how much am I relating to the material things that I own as basically serving me, in the sense of serving the needs that I have. For example, clothes. No, why do we need clothes? Question. In winter time, why do we need clothes? To look beautiful? To feel happy? To satisfy our anxiety sometimes, to buy more clothes, you know? To keep ourselves warm, to manifest a certain identity in society, to keep up with our positive self-esteem regarding one aspect or another. You know, there are many things. Clothes actually is a very complex subject. And it's not something from now, or even, you know, look at Buddhism, clothes is something very delicate, you know. And look, in every ancient culture, the way how you dress means a lot. So I'm not saying it's something that has no value at all. I'm saying that it's very important. But the problem is that if I start wearing clothes, and it becomes more important the fact of buying them and owning them than actually the function that they have for me. Because did our grandparents buy clothes as often as we buy them? No. And did it went through problems of feeling too cold in winter or not having nice clothes to wear? I don't think so. But we enter into this idea that, you know, things are cheaper and then we can get them often and then there is this pleasure of buying, because when we buy stuff, is it pleasurable or not? Okay, chemically what happens, doctor, when we buy things? Dopamine. There we are. You know, it's one of our biggest addictions. We live in a society in which we are addicted to dopamine. But the problem is that our addictions have a price to pay that is way too high. And one of the ways how we are paying the price for our addiction to dopamine is through the environment. Because we don't buy so many clothes because we need them. We buy them because we want dopamine. That's all. Truly speaking. Or not? Okay. And then if we go, we don't eat so, the things, for example, food that we eat. That's another example. We eat mostly, okay, Holland is a little bit different than Italy. But still. Mostly when we go to restaurants, we choose food based on what we like or what is good for us. Hopefully we try to go for a place that is good for us, but when we look in the menu, we try to find something that it's, for me personally, I need to look for something that is not harming my health, because I have many problems myself, restrictions and so on, and at the same time that it's tasteful. We really care for the taste. And if we look in a more, you know, large sense in society, how much is important the taste of food? Priority between taste and level of benefit for health and impact in environment. Put this three. Number one, Taste. Number second, cost maybe.
Yeah.
It's also there. Then there is a level of health-wise, between cost and health, they're competing. An impact in environment?
Low.
Very low. You know, if to eat that a lot of suffering needs to be involved, who cares? The suffering is already finished. No? Or not? And I didn't see it. But what happened is that I am part of it. So, again, it's our addiction to dopamine that has such an impact in our environment. Because the main issue regarding the environment, it's not the lack of the ability of nature to be able to sustain life in a healthy way. It's the fact that we want to satisfy our addictions to dopamine and our desires for everyone in a level that is endless. The more I have, the more I want, and I always need more and more and more and more and more. So, from our own personal level, the question that I make to myself is, how can I be part of the solution and not part of the problem? I need to be flexible, I need to adapt to the situations, but how can I be part of the solution at the same time? So, one thing which it's important for us to be part of the solution to invert is change our worldview. Because the problem regarding the environment starts from the worldview, starts from our paradigm. That's where everything starts. In which animals, plants, earth, air, anything that is not a human being, and actually also human beings. Anything that is not me, it's a resource. It is there for me. We have human resources and natural resources. Even that's our way of calling it, no? So it means we use things in order to serve our own needs. It's not a matter of exchange. It's not a way of finding a way how to dance together with nature beautifully and, and together with others and we are together. No, it's a matter of using others for our own needs. That's why we use this word resources. Now we have human resources and natural resources. And it's wonderful to try to use resources in a respectful and sustainable way. That's much better. But still, if we are able to change our paradigm from seeing everything around us as resources to seeing everything around us as something of which we are part of. We are part of humanity. We are part of nature. And being part means I need you in order for myself to be well. And we go together. It's like being part, it's similar to the concept of a body. If I have my whole body, if I cut my little finger, on the foot, I cut one part in my foot, maybe, the head is very far away. But can it destroy the head also? I can get an infection, I can get pain, it will make harm in my whole system. If one part of the body is sick, it makes the whole body sick. If one part of a family is sick, does it harm the rest of the family members? Yes. If one part of society is sick, it harms the rest of society either, in the same way. If one part of nature is sick, it harms the rest of nature. So, we do not own something. We are together in a process of trying to find balance between all of us. And in this balance means for me to be well, I need the world around me to be well as much as possible. In a family, for the family to be harmony for everyone needs to have a minimum state of well-being. And if you need my support, I will give something to you, because if you are well, I am better also. So, changing our perspective, our mentality from consuming and possessing nature to a worldview in which we are part of nature and we respect each other and we do an exchange. And an exchange means you serve my needs, I serve your needs. And together we help each other. This makes a whole different perspective. Okay? So the same with animals, the same with plants, the same with people. So, one way we have a change of paradigm. On the other side, we need to deal with our own behaviors that actually are part of the main causes of the whole problems that we have in society, and especially in this case of the environment. Because the environment problems that we have are not due to great corporations and the oil industry also. Mm-hmm. But the real cause is human greed and selfishness and inability to see the needs of others. That's what is actually creating all of this, first of all. It's very interesting. We are now in a moment in which when we see this, at least how it appears to me sometimes, these conclusions done in these big meetings, the position is, let's first destroy the planet, then afterwards, once we have consumed everything that we can and we made all the money with everything that we can make, then afterwards we can stop producing it when we cannot produce it anymore. I don't know if it's clear, the idea, but which is, I don't want to give up on myself, on my own desires, on my own greed. So, looking upon our own selves, looking upon ourselves, how much am I nourishing this endless desire, thing of wanting always more and consuming always more and being always with this process of insatisfaction, of always needing more. More comfort, less effort, more pleasure. How much do I live into this process myself? This is something that I cannot answer for anyone other than myself. We need to look upon ourselves and see that to say, okay, I am part of the solution. Mm-hmm. And then with that, we can act, into small things. Okay, it's Christmas, we need to give a present to someone, write this person a beautiful poem and write it by hand. Wow, something so rare nowadays. You write by hand a poem, make something beautiful and make a nice gift instead of buying something that, so what? Just an example. There are so many ways things that we can do. But the important thing is with awareness, not only is a matter of feeling, but also of acting as being part of a solution and not being part of the problem. I think this is one important thing. Because otherwise what happens is that also we see the problems going on, or we say they don't exist, or we say I don't look to them because otherwise I get frustrated and I get depressed. Instead, if we say, okay, they exist, it doesn't depend on me. We are a big society, this planet. But I can do my part. And on my small level, I will do my part. And this already makes a big difference. And the same thing comes when we enter actually the fact also regarding war. Because for me personally, one of the main issues of war it's not how many people are being killed, which is terrible. But that's not the main issue. The main issue, it's the level of violence that we are experiencing through all this process. The level of, because violence brings more violence. Mm-hmm. And violence brings suffering. And the other thing is the normalization of violence. both by those that are experiencing it directly and those that are experiencing through the media. Because we see certain things so often that after some time it becomes some sort of normal. So again, where does the war come from? Selfishness. It comes from the human mind. It doesn't come from external issues. Actually, it would be so easy to solve so many conflicts if we were able just to change something little bit inside the mind of those involved. But when there was the beginning of the war with Ukraine, some people came and saying, but why, how is it possible there to be such a war? And the answer that came to my mind was, in the same way how brothers and sisters can fight in a family. Why there is fight between people? Because each one has their own view of reality. Each one of us are attached to our own view of reality, and when we have a different view, and what you want doesn't serve my own desires, and what I want doesn't serve your own desires, and my desires are surely more important than yours. And I will do anything I can in order to have what I want instead of you. You are so selfish. You want what you want. So, when we look at some things with a bit of clarity, we are quite crazy, when we look at the dynamics that exist. And the interesting thing is that what happens in the macro, like in the bigger wars, is not so different than what happens in the micro. Within a family and between people that we know and friends and so on. It's not that different on some levels. So the question that I put to myself is, am I in favor of any sort of violence and war? No. And I'm not even entering into the geopolitical issues and the specific issues of any specific conflict. I'm not entering into that. What I'm saying is that I am against violence myself, and I do not believe that with violence I can actually eliminate violence. There was one of my teachers in India, and some years before I arrived in India, up to then, he was used to use the original Tibetan method of education, which was beating. I don't know, here in Holland, not so long ago, was it normal in the education process sometimes to use some physical force or not?
Yes.
I think many of you experienced it, no? And your grandparents? Yes. Okay, Tibet was very normal also. And I can tell you that my teacher, he used it a lot. And just to imagine, he had like 30 kids to grow up. Like being father, mother, everything together, and teacher. It was a big mess. And at one point, the way how to keep things in line was using some strong hand. And they're coming in a culture where this is normal, so also you need to, the level also gets higher in order to keep things in line. But one day, it's interesting because generally speaking, society has changed completely. Well, one day, he decided clearly that he would never ever use force again. And he used to beat with the mala. It's actually quite painful. I tried on myself once. I never got bitten by the monastery, but I tried on myself. And anyhow, we don't need to go into details on what happened there and so on. But what happened that one day, after using this mala a lot for that, he made a clear decision. He did a particular puja and so on. He burned the mala. Then he put under the ground. He made a whole thing of purification. And he made a commitment. He would never ever use physical force again. Never go to violence again. Because one of the main reasons, what he said, it works very well on a short term. But it creates a lot of deeper level of suffering on a middle, long term. It creates resentment, it creates fear, it creates many other problems on a middle, long term. So I will not use it anymore. Because when anyone acts out of violence normally, it is a sign of one's own suffering and desperation. It is because there is something that you're lacking. Someone that is fully satisfied doesn't act out of violence. Or not? Normally, to go out and harm someone, it's a sign of desperation. I don't see people that are with wealth and then they're well, that they go out of just of pleasure, they want to harm people. Sometimes it happens, and this is just a sign of a really, really sick mind. But normally it's not like that. And normally when this happens, it's a sign of another type of suffering manifesting. Okay? But these are very isolated cases, luckily. But, so, if someone is acting with violence because there is desperation, because there is some suffering behind, what would be the best way to stop such violence? Dealing with the cause, which is the desperation. So, if you are acting out with violence, and I don't want you to act with violence, I need to help you, not to go against you, in order to make it work. Because if I treat you with violence, you may stop being violent to me right away because you don't want to get a higher level of violence towards you. But in the first moment that somehow you feel that there is no anymore that stretch, the violence will come up again. It's not something that goes away. So in the moment that violence doesn't take away violence, in our own daily life, how do we act? How much are we truly for peace? You know? With our family, with our friends, in the way how we speak. Someone may say, oh, but I don't act physically violent. Okay, up to now you never felt the need for. You know, I see that myself, I am in situations that I am not into any situation of difficulty that is at a very high level. Because I wonder, when I look at some situations around the world, I say, I don't know how I would react in that situation, you know. I don't know. So, on my own level, how can I actually cultivate peace? How can I be part of the solution here? By trying not to enter into conflicts. And one of the way of not entering into conflicts, it's remembering that normally, I saw one time one saying, which was a citation from a Greek philosopher of something like 3,000 something years ago. Was there the name of the philosopher and the date? I don't remember actually. But I remember the phrase very clearly. It says, it's from more than 3,000 years ago, and it was saying, the first victim of war is the truth. The truth is the first victim of war. And when there is a conflict between two people, and both of them come to talk to you, can you truly trust any one of them? No. Because both of them have their own view, and will try to bring things towards their own side. If you want to have a really neutral position and understand it clear, you need first of all to listen to both. And probably you will have a third opinion. When we listen to the news and so on, we are always listening to the position of someone, mostly. So, for example, one thing I try to do if I want to understand something is to read the news from opposite newspapers. Trying to see things from different positions. trying to get to my own point of view and my own understanding of things instead of repeating things that are being said to me on one side and another. And especially and most of all, do not enter into this unhealthy game of attraction and aversion, being against this one and in the favor of that. I am against violence. I am in favor of peace for everyone. Not because one is like this and the other is like that. And the same thing is actually on our own daily life. So when it comes to war, one point is, okay, I live in times of uncertainty and I need to be ready for whatever comes. And this means I need to rely upon my own resources. I need to live my life without regrets. I need to be able to cultivate an emotional stability, which is one of the most important resources that we can have on any situation. And I need to be part of the solution. I think this is one of the most important aspects also, because otherwise, once again, we become disconnected with everything, and it's actually harming quite deeply the fact that to see so much problems and violence and not being able to do anything regarding it, and at the same time living as if it doesn't exist. I don't know if this picture is something that you recognize. And it harms from inside, because we know that something is there, and then we cannot do much, and we create this sort of indifference. So, if I act myself in a way that is consistent, in a way that is coherent, and I am part of the solution myself, I don't need to be the solution, I need to be part of the solution. I'm not going to solve any war. I'm not going to solve the climate crisis. I'm not going to solve any war. I'm not going to be this solution. But I do my best so that my actions are part of the solution, go in the right direction. And this makes a big difference for us. This really, really, really makes a big difference. Just can get me one time, just because
it's 9.
Okay. So, one last thing. Life is cyclic. History is cyclic. It repeats itself. Okay. Climate crises have been there before, different than the one that are here, but they have been there before. Social crises have happened, wars have happened. It's just that we are very short-sighted, so because in my generation I never saw a war with my own eyes, and we grew up with the idea that it can never happen, we have this idea that it will never happen. It's not exactly like that. Okay? Buddha said very clearly, anything that begins sooner or later will end. Anything that accumulates sooner or later will dissolve. Everything that meets sooner or later will come apart. It is normal. And we have different aspects, of situations that they will come, they will happen. Conflicts will come, hopefully not, but they will, I believe. And this is part of the cyclic thing of our own reality. It is very common, if we look in history, we will see that often it happens that a certain part of society got rich, everything was very prosperous, and then suddenly lost sense of direction, and then this brought into conflict, and then became war, and then there was the scarcity of resources, and then a lot of suffering, and then looking for meaning again, and then slowly making it better, and then when everything is too good, then lose the sight of direction just because too much enjoyment. This is what happened so many times in history. So, what are the probabilities that it will repeat in the same way? Quite high. Okay? And sooner than later we will die anyhow. Okay? So, we have to worry up to a certain point. Because, Okay, I die, and then so what? Finish. But what really matters is that the day that I die, something of myself continues. And I leave something for the others. And I tell you very sincerely, I want to be reborn a little bit better than this life. I don't want to be reborn a lazy person. No. And what happens is that every experience that we go through now, we are shaping our own predispositions, our own habits. We are shaping our mind, we are shaping ourselves. Okay, forget about reincarnation for 1 second. You know, for those that are like young, for older also, but most of the elder ones are already reached there in a good way, hopefully. But for those much younger, what kind of old person you want to be? No, because when I think, okay, when I will be in my 80s, I look at my grandfather. He's now 22nd of January, he will be 100. Which, being 100 is not necessarily a big achievement. Depends how you reach there. Yeah. And he's quite well, quite good. You know, I was very touched when I was with him not long ago, and he was very well. But this is because the whole life working in that direction. First thing. Second, when we think about, someone very old, what are the two stereotypes? Say stereotypes in English, no? Like classical stereotypes. There is one which is the old person, which is kind, and is an example for others, that has experienced so many things in life, that can see anything. There are no more taboos because I've been and gone through so many things. There is a sort of stability, there is a wisdom that comes with age, and so on. Then there is the other stereotype, which is the one that is always angry and has no patience for anything, and then, there is like bad habits just becoming more and more strong and deep and so on. So I ask myself, what type of old person I want to become? It depends how I live now. And if we go on a deeper level, what type of baby I want to be? There are some nasty babies there, and there are some nice babies, I'm sorry to say, or not. I don't know if you've ever seen a nasty baby. They do exist. I don't want to be a nasty baby. Because normally a nasty baby, but then after, needs a lot of work to be a nice adult. So, what kind of baby I want to be? So, the main issue is, what aspects am I cultivating now in my life? In order for what I will become. And make one simple example. I take the car to go somewhere. Let's say it is a very important appointment. I need to go to the doctor, or I need to go to meet a friend, and it's a one in a year time opportunity. To get that appointment was really difficult, and it's a very important moment for me to go there to see that person. I am on my way. I leave early in order to make sure I get there on time, and so on, because I cannot get late, otherwise I lose my appointment. As I am on my way, I am blocked on the traffic. I get completely blocked in traffic because there is an accident, whatever. I don't know what is happening, but I get completely blocked in traffic. How do I feel? Relaxed, stressed, tense, nervous, angry, frustrated. How come this has happened? There are, different people, different reaction, but there are those that say, oh, the world is against me. Why this is happening to me? I shouldn't get this job, and now I cannot go there because of this or that. And why this? And then we can get angry with the government because the traffic is not okay. They didn't manage well the road. Who knows what? But there is one very simple thing here. The fact that the cars are not moving, it's not my problem. Because I cannot solve it. Or can I solve it? What choices I have? Or I get out of the car and try to walk. I saw this happening a few times. So one time when I was a kid, one time my father was so tired of the traffic, he was not driving, but he left the car and started walking. We picked him up some many kilometers up. There was so much traffic that was there. Or, what choice do we have? Be there. But the main issue is that if I get nervous, angry, anxious, and so on, I am training myself into that reaction. On the other side, it's a wonderful opportunity to train patience. Because to train patience, I need to have an object of anger. I cannot train patience without having an object of anger. Because what it means to train, it means to do something that is not easy, that is not natural, but it's the direction that we want to go. So if I want to be a person that is patient, that is kind, that is stable, that is with harmony, respectful, and so on, and I am not yet that person, what I need to do, I need to train myself into what I want to become. And every situation I have in my daily life is an opportunity of training. So one thing is I get back home because I lost my appointment and I am still so angry of what have happened and because of the traffic, and I am very sad of what have happened and angry. And the other thing is I get back home and I said, I'm sorry that I lost my appointment. But I'm quite happy that I could keep my calm and I didn't get angry and I could train myself in patience. The afternoon didn't go waste. I did something good. And if we look at every situation that we are in, there is an external aspect and then there is an internal aspect of what we are training ourselves by how we experience that situation. It's like looking at the news. Lama Michel Rinpoche used to watch a lot of news for some time. And it happens, there was a period of few years that in Rinpoche's room, the TV was always on with the news channels. And sometimes it was really tiring. There were times that I went to see Rinpoche and I said to Rinpoche, can we turn off, please? I already listened to the same news because the news, they go in loop, no? And I said, okay, I already know by heart what have happened. And okay, then change the channel. It's the same. They are the same news repeated by different people. What's the point? And then one time I said this to Rinpoche, and Rinpoche looked at me and said, but I don't really listen to it. And why do you have it on? I said, I don't really understand so many of the news of what is happening to the world. And why do you have it on? And I just say, it's because normally it's mostly bad news. And I look to it and I pray to people. I connect myself. It's like a bridge. It's like helping me to connect myself, to remind myself, and I pray for them. I don't care about what is happening. I don't look at the details. It's not that. It's not a matter of entertainment, of understanding what is happening. It's a matter way of connecting me with the suffering that is there for me to pray for them. And this we see the difference of approach on the same thing. And we can see a lot of suffering, and we can familiarize ourselves with compassion. We can do something pro-positive towards that suffering. Even a thought, it's something. Or we can react with anger and fear and anxiety and so on. And someone may say, but how can I do it, By using our freedom. Because do we have free will or not? Does free will exist or not? I believe yes. Not total. Not like we can choose to be anything we want. This doesn't exist. But do we have the free will to choose? I relate in this way or in that way. I see it in this way, in that way. In other words, our free will is outside, in the world around us, or in our mind. Do I have the freedom to make the world, or that the world around me is what I expect it to be? My freedom is in my thoughts. That's where my freedom lies. So if we choose the way how we relate to situations, that's where we're really using our free will in the right way. Because the world around us doesn't depend on us. We cannot have control over it. And trying to have control over it, it's making us sick. Instead, if we choose to have control over what truly depends on us, which is our thoughts, our reactions, our choices, our values, then we try to use every situation to train us to be what we want to be. And we have so many opportunities to train in compassion, to train in generosity, to train in kindness, to train in patience, to train in stability, to train in love. There are so many things that we can train everywhere, wherever we go, every moment, you know. So, to see the different moments of life as an opportunity of training. And once we are able to see from that perspective, then things change. Because, and this is what we take with us after we die. This is what we take with us as we move along in this life, year after year. Because I was looking at my grandfather, kind, never complaining, and so on. But then I talked with my father, and my father said, I don't remember my father ever complaining before. Okay, that's a whole life cultivating this attitude. You know? Then after it becomes a habit. And the deeper habits, we take them from life to life also. So the question once again is, how do I live my life? Am I part of the problem or am I part of the solution? This is one. And the other, which qualities am I cultivating? In which way is life being part of a training process for myself? Okay, and with this, we can go along quite well. Because we can make our life meaningful. The alternative, you know, is to survive in the most comfortable way as possible. Or not. You know, the ancient Romans said it was bread and circus, no? Nowadays we have pizza and Netflix. You can add some marijuana or whatever to it. I just was in New York not long ago. So much smell of marijuana everywhere. No problem. But just to say that we have very often this attitude of looking for things to take us away of ourselves. Movies, pleasure of every sense, alcohol, and so on, which in themselves and by themselves is not the problem. The problem is that it's a refuge that becomes, no? More and more, more and more, more and more. This is what I mean by surviving in the best way as we can, without living the life for a certain purpose. So in the moment that we live our life, one, to be part of the solution in this world, to live our life as a positive interdependence in the world that we live, from a society point of view, from an environment point of view. You know, I am part of the solution. I am a positive interdependence. The day I die, the different interactions that I created, hopefully there will be more positive ones than negative ones. This is one thing that makes this life meaningful. And the other aspect is the day that I die a better person than the one that was born. I train myself to develop the characteristics that I want to be, and I bring something good with me. And these two things makes our life meaningful, you know. So, try to take advantage of the climate crisis and the wars by allowing it to shake ourselves away from this illusional lifestyle, that comfortable survival. I don't know if it's clear, this. Take advantage in that sense. Okay? And then tomorrow we will have these 2 days to go through what Lama Tsongkhapa instructed us as having a meaningful life. What to do in order to make our life meaningful. And he gave very, very practical steps actually, in order to get out of this way of trying to survive just in a comfortable way. And then we will go through it together, and what can be done in 2 days is not so much, but we will go through it together. But that's it. And I truly believe we can do a lot. Otherwise, there will be no point being here together. Okay. So there is a traditional way of saying in the end of the teachings. There is a particular verse that is repeated sometimes, but the meaning which is a sincere request, which is, please, if there is anything that we have said that you think that on any level it could be of benefit, please put an effort to bring it into practice. This is my request. Okay? We make our dedications. Jetsu lame kutse rapten chi namkara chinle chokchu gepada losan tembe drame sasum gi drove munse tatu ne gyruchi kewa kundu yanda lama da drame chiki bela longche chi sadan lamgi yente rapsun Changi kopa nyur tobe sho nimo delek sendele nime kunyan delek shin nitsen taktu delek koncho sumgi chingi lo koncho sumgi modrup so koncho sumgi tashi sho. At dawn or dusk, at night or midday, may the three jewels grant us their blessings. May they help us to achieve all realizations and spring all the path of our lives with various signs of auspiciousness.
Bij nacht of middag mogen de rituelen ons een zegeningen schenken. Mogen zij ons helpen alle realisaties te verwerven en het pad van ons leven besproeien met variërende tekens van voorspoed.
Bei Sonnenaufgang, Abenddämmerung,
Nachts und mittags mögen die drei Regeln sie den Segen gewähren. Mögen sie das Herzen aller Verwicklungen zu erlangen und unseren Lebensweg mit die verschiedenen Zeiten bestrengen.
Thank you very much. And please never forget also the power of our mind and our prayers. Okay, so wherever there is conflict, it was not only Lama Ganchen that could do prayers looking at the news. We can all do that also. We can all connect, we can all send something positive, at least from our mind. This already makes the difference of something. Okay? Sure, through our actions, physical, verbal, but also through our mind. Okay, thank you very much. Then have a good evening and rest, and then see you tomorrow.